President Trump knew exactly what was going on. He was aware of all of my movements. I wouldn't do anything without the consent of Rudy Giuliani or the president. I was on the ground doing their work.
That was just one of many revelations from the Parnas interview last night. Parnas, again, the Rudy Giuliani associate who got arrested, then decided to cooperate with Congress. Now, yesterday, we told you about all the evidence the House Dems revealed regarding Parnas. It also included a ton of major revelations. There was a letter from Rudy Giuliani to the Ukrainian president, where Rudy requesting a meeting with President Zelensky. And in that letter, Rudy says President Trump has the, quote, knowledge and consent of what Giuliani's doing. That's the first document we've seen that clearly says the president was directing his personal attorney's actions when it came to Ukraine. It also includes a handwritten note from Parnas on Ritz-Carlton stationery from Vienna with what appears to be a to-do list. One bullet point says, get Zelensky to announce that the Biden case will be investigated. Another says, go to D.C. with package and use my magic to cut a deal. Now, Democrats, they're using this as one more reason why you need to hear from witnesses in the Senate trial. But interestingly, one of the most moderate Republicans on the Hill, Susan Collins, a Republican from Maine, she appears more concerned about the process than the content. Now, instead of expressing concerns about what was found, Senator Collins instead questioning why the House Democrats didn't provide the evidence sooner. It's a little bit of a tell as to where or what lack of passion there may be to get these folks to testify under oath. Joining me now, former Republican New Jersey Governor Christie Todd Whitman. She's now co-chair of the National Task Force on Rule of Law and Democracy. The group's mission to strengthen ethics, prevent inappropriate interference in law enforcement, as well as the courts, and a lot more. Governor, I always appreciate you making time for us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
You, as much as any former elected Republican, have been vocal the last 3 years saying the destruction of norms, it is not only dangerous now, but for this country going forward. To that point, there are 53 Republicans that have to make a decision before they decide whether or not the president is guilty of impeachable offenses. Do they want to hear from witnesses? I know there's 3 right now that are on the fence, and we've spoken to folks on the Hill today that really don't know which way at the end of the day they're going to go on this. Do you think there's an inevitability we hear from witnesses, or do you think the fear of Trump is such that impossibly we're going to have a trial without hearing from some of the most important people as to what they saw and heard?
I don't know how, if you're being honest about having a trial and really looking at it impartially, and they all just took an oath to swear that that's what they were going to do, that you can do it without witnesses. There's just too much stuff out there, and they're too important. Both sides can have witnesses, and as I understand it, Joe Biden has said he would he would testify if asked to. So I think you have to have witnesses in this kind of a case. This is the impeachment of the President of the United States. It is critically important to our democracy, and it needs to be done in the most bipartisan way possible. And you can't do that if you've said, I'm coordinating it all with the White House and I'm not going to listen to any testimony.
You know, I interviewed a little earlier a senator who served with a lot of the current senators now, who, like you said, it's inexplicable how you could have a trial. But I wonder, if you were the sitting governor of New Jersey, knowing the president's power as it relates with his base, that anyone who crosses him could be looking at a primary challenge and political consequences within today's G.O.P., how difficult would it be for you to make the calculation that, you know what, even though I believe this is right here, I'm going to risk my political career to, you know, call foul when you see a foul?
Well, I mean, I've done it on a lesser level in that I had to conditionally veto something on my reelection year that I knew was going to bring another candidate probably into the race and make my race very close. But I had to do it because I felt it was the right thing to do. In this instance, this is so critically important to the country that you've got to take it seriously. You've got to listen to the evidence. I don't think that it's inconsistent for someone like Susan Collins to say, why are the Democrats only bringing this up now? And at the same time, look at the evidence. She will do that. I know her. She will look at that evidence and she will think about it and she will weigh it. But it's also troubling that the Democrats didn't bring it up till now, if they've had it before. But the whole point here is the American people have got to believe that this process is being done outside of the partisan politics. Understanding politics is always there, but that this is one time where you put your country ahead of your party.
From the perspective of your group, and we should also mention Preet Bharara, also involved with you in this organization, where you're looking at not just the here and now, but the consequences. Give an idea to the public about what concerns you most about the new precedent that would be set if, in effect, this is permissible, trying to shake down a foreign country with monies that was accorded to Congress for political gain. And again, this on the heels of what happened in 2016 with the Russian hacks. If we somehow allow this, and the obstruction, the refusal to turn over evidence, the idea that a president is above the rule of law, and a Congress that would be abdicating in many ways its check and balance responsibility if they go along to get along, what would be the consequences you're afraid going forward?
Well, I think the consequences could be dire. It undermines our basic principles of government if everything, as you lay out, I happen to believe what you lay out is true, but the job of the senators is to listen to all that evidence and decide for themselves, is this real or not? I mean, it's clear that our Constitution and our founding fathers were very worried about foreign interference in our elections. And it's very clear you're not allowed to ask for that. It's also clear the president did. I mean, we heard him say it out loud. You know, Russia, if you can find something more, great, bring it to me. China, too, if you want to. That you can dismiss as just being rhetoric on a campaign trail, but there's too much else there. I happen to believe that, yes, this pressure was put on Ukraine, and irrespective of the damage that's doing in Ukraine to a new leader who is really trying to undo all the corruption that was there before, this is against what our Constitution said. I also believe very firmly that if you don't have anything to hide, why wouldn't you let those people who actually could testify, who are in the room with you when you made this perfect call, why don't you let them testify? I understand executive privilege. This to me looks like it is obstruction of Congress. I don't understand why the Congress didn't push harder to have those witnesses testify, why they didn't go to court. You could still move ahead with all the other evidence they were collecting. It didn't have to stop the impeachment process that the Democrats wanted to move forward in the way they did, but still have demanded through the courts for this to be proved that, in fact, executive privilege was appropriate for blocking these members from coming forward and giving testimony.
Obviously, all of this, Governor, happening in an election year, and not just for the president. There's a lot of vulnerable Republicans that are up for re-election, and with names that might not mean a lot to the public, but you know the Schmitts, the Weavers, the Wilsons, real players in the Republican Party for the last 30, 40 years. They, along with others, really concerned about what they're seeing right now and what's happened to the grand old party that they grew up in. They put out a spot. This is from Project Lincoln. Let me play a clip for our audience.
Hey, Cory Gardner, ask yourself, why are you losing? Why do the polls show you headed for humiliating defeat in November? So scared of his tweets, you'll do anything Trump orders. Blocking witnesses, stonewalling to keep Trump's corruption secret, breaking your oath to follow the Constitution and the law.
One of the other people involved in this, Kellyanne Conway's husband, George Conway, to be a fly on the wall in that house. But my point, Governor, is politically, Bolton's book's going to come out this summer. I mean, some of this stuff's going to come out. There'll be more revelations. The political gamble Republicans are taking, forgetting even ethics here. How risky and bad politics you think it is for a lot of these Republicans to just look the other way on this one. I know clearly your organization, you've been vocal for years that we can't let these things go for the better part of the country, but even on pure raw politics, aren't Republicans taking a bigger gamble to go along to get along than to at least demand to have an open and transparent trial?
Well, there are two things as far as I'm concerned at play here. One is that they all should remember they had jobs before they went into the House or the Senate, and they'll have them again. They can have them again, probably do better than they did before. So there is a life after politics, and you've got to go with your conscience. And I have more faith in the American people. If you go to them and explain very clearly why you made the decision you did, and based on what kind of evidence you had before you, you'll get support. You may not get as much as you did before. You may not win by as much in your reelection, but you can still win. You have to have a conscience here, and that's got to be, to me, reputation is the most important thing. It's so easy to lose and so very hard to get back. And you don't want to lose that.
Governor Whitman, I always appreciate the time. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, folks, when we come back, there's a book that's coming out about President Trump from some folks who know D.C. as well as anybody, and there are some incredible revelations about things like his apparent ignorance about Pearl Harbor, and also how he wanted to get rid of an anti-corruption law that would ban U.S. companies from bribing foreign governments. That's just for starters. The details, they're next.